Hello everybody. In this video we're going to talk about Hbar. More so, I want to give you guys what I think is a realistic route, direction, and time frame for us to see this $5 Hedera Hbar. Right? Like for the last, I don't know, 3-4 years, I've heard many people talk about Hbar to $1, Hbar $2, $5, $10, and at a certain point it's moonish based on time frame. Right? I was one of the louder people, at least I got scolded for saying this several times, that during alt season, Hbar was never going to hit $2. I was expecting like 75 to 90 cents. Obviously, we got nowhere close, and that's for almost all crypto. But the point being is I was never against a $1 or $2 Hbar. I'm not against a $5 Hbar. The time frame, though, matters. And more so, what exactly is it going to take? Because it is a utility-based token. And we're not going to end up getting that far from just hype. There has to be utility, or at least hype behind the potential of a lot of new activity, kind of all at once or in sequence. So what I'm going to break down in this video essentially is the path I see realistically to where Hedera can get to a $5 Hbar. What's the main catalyst that I think is going to have to happen, or realistically could. Generalized time frame for it to get up to around those numbers. And these are just my thoughts, no financial advice, nothing even saying go look at getting into Hbar, but if you're an owner of it and you've been thinking about can I get up to a $1, $5, $10, etc., and when, that's what this video is about. So if you guys have any thoughts, put them down below. Agreeing, disagreeing, and additions are also great. I love chatting with you guys in the comments. But now let's just kind of get right into how do I think that Hedera can get to a $5 Hbar and when. So at the time of the recording, Hbar is sitting around 10 cents. So let's be direct, 10 cents at a little over a $4 billion market cap. We are nowhere fucking close to this $5. So if you're having the presumption that I'm probably not talking about this happening this year, you would be correct. However, I do think that it's fully possible for it to end up getting up there. Yes, it's ambitious, but there's times involved. Right? And there's a couple things I think will have to happen, or at least statistically more likely to help us get there. So what exactly do I think it would take for Hbar to realistically get up to that $5? Right? I think that there's at least 5 major compounding factors here. And compounding, I think we need at least most of these for us to get up that high from where we are now. Right? And the things I'm thinking of is, one, Hbar has to end up being a dominant player in the RWA narrative. I think this one's very likely. I think they're already set up pretty well to be one of the dominant players. Now, we're not saying it has to be the top one. It just has to be one of the big guys, right? We already know who a lot of the players are right now and the realistic feel of which ones are going to come out on top. So I think this one's realistic, but I also think it's required. Right? We also need more major ETF inflows and institutional accumulation. That reduces sell pressure, right? Those of us that are talking about $5 Hbar right now, we're retail, right? Institution isn't worried about that. They're thinking about use cases, and if they see it in the terms of looking at ETF savings, then they're looking really long term anyway. So more ETFs and institutional accumulation would be huge. We want a little bit more information and integration with the Hedera Council. Not every Hedera Council governing member uses Hedera. It'd be freaking awesome if they do. Specifically, FedEx would probably one of their largest use cases if/when they jump in actually using Hedera. We need to see transaction volume scaling with all the fee mechanics, and we need some macro crypto cycle or regulatory tailwinds. We need sentiment is essentially it, right? We're not going to hit a $5 in a bearish market. Right? There's just no real opportunity for that. So let's break these down a little bit more one at one and add some time frames involved with this. So dominance with RWA or tokenization, right? I mean, they're already kind of one of the leaders in tokenization, right? There's about $10 billion worth of tokenized FX collateral just with Archax and Lloyd's Banks. Red Swan's real estate tokenization is in there with carbon credits and Vera. The global RWA market is projected to hit the trillions by 2030. Trillions, people. Right? And Hedera's enterprise governance, being able to do 10,000 plus TPS with their low fees, that's always made a perfect fit for that high volume, constant transactions. Right? Because it's a set fee structure, no matter if we're sending 2 nuggets of information or payments across borders or hundreds of thousands. that brings in enterprise, right? Hbar isn't targeting retail, they're targeting institutional use. So they've already got a good price, they got a good footing into it, and they've got a great backing with their entire council. It's just waiting for the amount of numbers to get in. So when I say they have to be a dominant player, they have to, one, because if there are $200 billion worth of tokenized assets coming in, yes, the one that gets the biggest hunk of that pie is going to do well. But more so, we need a crap ton of inflows coming into Hashgraph with the low fees to be able to get the money up as it goes. Now, in all reality, yes, Hbar price will go up some from high utility use, but it goes up more from people buying the damn thing, right? And as we see more high utility uses coming in, institutions is going to be a big part of what comes in to buy it, because they're going to, one, hear about this stuff a little bit sooner. Two, they're less likely to sell. They'll buy when it's in the red, like everyone says we're supposed to, and very few people actually do, and they'll hold the damn thing perfectly fine. So that ties right into with institutional. More ETFs. There are likely more coming. I saw it looked like one more was just okayed, and that's coming out. I'll get some more details about that in the near future. But more ETFs, more reasons for institution and everything to gather onto it. If we start hearing about more indices of like the Coinbase 50 or an RWA or an ISO index, where you can just put a little bit of money into the whole fund and buy it with things like XRP, Quant, XLM, Onyx, etc. would be great. And I think that's also very realistic. Again, it brings in more of the non-retail, the bigger money, who will hold on to the darn thing a lot longer. Third is having the council members really scaling the integration that they use. Meaning it's great that Hbar is in a little bit with Intel and Microsoft on some aspects like CPUs and GPUs, but not every member of Hbar Council uses Hashgraph right now. If they did, that would be a huge jump up from this, right? I mean, they get other benefits and they give other benefits to Hbar regardless. However, if we have FedEx jump in and start using, they do like 5 to 10 scans per package every day, billions of transactions, that would be a huge use case. There's a couple of banks that are on Hbar. Granted, they might not be able to legally use with regulation and everything Hbar yet, but down the road when talking about getting to a $1, $5, $10 Hbar, yeah, banks will be fully regulated with CBDCs, cross-border payments, tokenized structures, collateral, and everything. So having, it's not guaranteed, but let's say we got guaranteed with those banks on the governing council, that would also increase the use case. So really we don't need, but it would greatly benefit for all the governing council members to hop on board and integrate more fully with Hbar. Expecting that over time, specifically as more regulation and everything comes into play. So this next one kind of ties in again with the others, they kind of should, is transaction volume and the fee mechanics play a factor here, right? Hbar itself has processed over 71 billion transactions to date. Its fees are tiny, but every transaction requires Hbar to be used, right? So if enterprise adoption scales to like Visa level subsets, and we could see trillions of transactions annually, again, think of that $200 trillion of tokenized assets are going to have to go on blockchain. If we get a decent piece of it, it means billions of Hbar is going to be used for fees. And that's the fee structure. It doesn't have to be a lot of fees at one time. It's the volume of transactions. So again, as utility comes in, as we have more things like ETFs coming in, more variety, we have more of the governing council members that hop in to use Hbar Hashgraph. That will also increase the transactions, which then increases the Hbar that's being used, moves it off market, helps out with the price. So again, all this stuff kind of ties into play, and again, I feel like we need all of these things. Let's continue, we got a little bit more to go on with this. So lastly of those 5 things I think we need to compound on is going to be market sentiment, or really just, you call it guys, but we need a bull market. We need these things to all come together and kind of either peak in a bull market or just add more time frame to the time frames I'm going to give you guys in a few moments. But again, we know bull markets, it usually jumps for altcoins 10 to 100x. And before I get any of those rolling eyes, do realize that this wasn't the altcoin season everyone expected. If you go from bear market lows to bull run highs in the last 3 years, most altcoins definitely over 10x. Like a lot of them did. We just didn't have as many that got to 100x. There was a lot of 10 to 20x's out there, a bunch of them. But it's when did you get in? If you got in any time, really after like I don't know, late 2023, early 2024, probably didn't make out as well. But we do need market sentiment and a lot of just liquidity coming in. So the timing of excitement, it doesn't have to be a bull market. It could be a narrative pump. It could be when enough announcements with regulation and legislation comes in at the same time as an ETF, at the same time as FedEx and a couple of banks announce they're going to use Hbar. When I say the same time, it could be within a couple of weeks, even just one couple weeks later, and stagger across. Because good news, as long as it is legitimate news, does last. So I just think that we need a lot more excitement. Seeing like the entire crypto market reach like 12 to 15 trillion dollars, which is incredibly realistic in the next cycle, however you want to define that at the time. But with that being said, now that we've laid out like the 5 compounding factors I think it needs to be, the next big thing to talk about is timing, right? Now, based off of things like current adoption trends, ETF growth, enterprise deployments, I have what I think is a realistic time frame set out for these things to happen. But before we get there, we got to hit a couple different milestones, right? Because every large goal is just the summation of plenty of small ones. So, if we want to see this $5 Hbar possible, I think there's a couple of like critical steps that we have to see before we can even consider this whole $5 concept or phenomenon. So, get a little bit more detail is with ETF, the expansion, institutional adoption, we need more regulated products to launch, right? We need locking up like 10 to 20% of the supply. There's just, the numbers just don't work otherwise, right? We need larger use cases. And the reason why like ETF expansion so much is that, yes, I know people buy, sell, and trade ETFs also, but they do it far less. And the types of people or the styles of investors that usually go to ETFs are not the highly emotional crypto retail that we kind of grow accustomed to, we'll say love. That we just get used to the habit of people sell all the time, and it sells when it's red, they sell when it's green. What do we do? ETF owners are far less likely to do that. So having a greatly increased, we'll say 10 to 20% of the Hbar supply locked up from ETFs, that would be massive. Right? Enterprise adoption at scale, back to these council members, right? They need to deploy to production on level apps, not just a bunch of pilots, right? Again, have FedEx, IBM, Boeing, Repsol, have these companies in, and they're putting in a couple $1 billion a year of transactions, or billions of, doesn't have to be financial transactions. Again, like FedEx, they scan packages all the effing time for knowing where things are going, what time they're supposed to get there, instantaneous information, third-party save data. Still billions of transactions every year. Get more of those coming in. And they don't have to be governing council members, of course, but those are the ones lowest hanging fruit, who is most likely to hop into it. For just general RWA and tokenization growth, right? For Hbar capturing meaningful share of the tokenized assets, real estate, and ESG markets. It's really all the apps and everything on them, just more is to come in. I guess the story for half of these things is we just need more stuff on Hbar Hashgraph. But the amounts certainly matter. And if it's a slower adoption, it is going to be better long term. Right? So if we have 5 large companies jump in on Hbar all in a month period, we're going to see the price go up. But then we're going to have a much harder crash. What goes up quickly goes down just as quickly. So if there's a slower staggered growth, we're talking 3, 5, 10 years, not the estimation yet, that's going to be a lot better for us than having it happen really quickly. So it's slow volume increases over time. Now, for all of it to get up there, I do think we're talking 5 to 10 years, right? I mean, we're going to have pieces of that happen probably this year. Like, I would not be surprised for us to have more ETFs announced this year. I would be shocked for us to have another governing council member jump in with a use case or a pilot by the end of this year. I definitely think there's going to be more tokenized assets, even if it's more stable coins and everything thrown on Hashgraph this year. But I do think we're waiting 5 to 10 years to really get to that $2 to $5 mark. even for another aspect of that is look at the cycle. Whether you think that we're on an extended cycle and we're gonna have another big bulk run at the end of this year and then another 3 to 5 years. Okay, that's putting us in that 2030, 2032 category. Or if you think that we had our bull run, we had our 4 years, and now we're partway through the next set, that puts us again still around a little earlier at 2029, 2031. So I do think we're looking at least 5 years out for a $2 to $5 H-bar, personal opinion. But now to be clear, it could happen faster, it could happen slower, but the first thing we have to find before it gets to a $5 H-bar is a $1 H-bar. And at this point, I'm going to be shocked if it doesn't happen by 2030. I really think that we're going to see somewhere between the $1 and $3 H-bar by 2030. Mostly because of things that are already happening, right? We have all the 5 catalysts I mentioned, we already have started, right? We have increased tokenized assets coming onto Hbar. We have more governing council members being chosen, better increase that they're going to hop in. We are having more legislation and regulation of tokenized assets, stablecoins, CBDCs, how to do instant cross-border payments and internal payments. All that stuff is already happening right now. It's just continuing the phase and the growth of it. And time that with a likely bear market sometime within a year around that 2030 area. Yeah, I think we're going to see a $1 to $3 H-bar. So clearly there's always risks that can slow this down, right? I mean, slower integration pace, competition from all the other tokens that are trying to do tokenized assets, legislation, regulation being slowed down, continued threats of World War III every other month that we have had. I thought that was done in 2025. Apparently not. But there's always things that can slow it down. So that $5 H-bar as the official prediction, I'm thinking by 2035, give or take a year, I think we're going to have it. I think we're going to see a dollar cross before 2030 because everything is already going the way it has to. Hbar is constantly growing a little bit. Not the price action. Price action goes with us retail when we're excited and we buy things. But the adoption that helps stimulate that price action and news, and more so, the buyers that aren't going to sell or panic sell, moreover, institution, they're what's increasing. That's what we need more of. So there's my thoughts, guys. Let me know what yours are down below. Do you think we're going to see a $1 H-bar? I assume if you're watching this, you think we're going to eventually. What about a $3 or a $5? Are you in that super bullish category, thinking we're going to see a $10 H-bar sometime? Love to hear your thoughts on that. When you think they'll happen, let me know, guys. Until next time, peace.